Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sharon Restivo here from Vienna, representing ITU. I'm very pleased to welcome you today to this workshop organized by ITU on advancing environmental efficiency of emerging technologies. So to start, just a couple of housekeeping words. So many of us here in Vienna as well as online. So for the people joining us remotely, we kindly ask that you type any questions that you would like to pose to speakers in the chat box. And one of us here in Vienna will be able to read out the questions to the speakers. For our in-person participants here in Vienna, if you would like to take the floor, please kindly raise your hand. And once the chair has given you the floor, do press on the button, on the mic button. And once you're done, we ask that you press again on the button. So with that, I would like to now open this workshop and start the opening session by giving the floor to Dr. Reinhard Scholl, who is the Deputy Director of ITU Standardization Bureau. Reinhard, over to you.
Thank you very much, Charlene. Dear colleagues, it is a great pleasure to address you at today's ITU workshop on advancing environmental efficiency of emerging technologies, which is organized by the focus group on environmental efficiency for artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. And I hope that many of you will also participate in the meeting of the focus group on Wednesday. I would like to thank Mrs. Margarete Kriz-Zwittkovits, the Vice President of the Vienna Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Austria, for hosting the workshop and the focus group meeting. And I would like to thank Dr. Barbara Kolm, the Director of the Austrian Economics Center, and the Vice President of the Austrian National Bank for inviting us. This is the first in-person meeting of the ITU standardization sector since the beginning of COVID, more than 2 years ago. And it is taking place in Vienna, which often ranks in the top of the most livable cities of the world. So those who are lucky enough to attend this meeting in person, make sure you also enjoy Vienna. But we would also welcome those who are connecting remotely. Eventually, the world will learn how to run hybrid meetings, but I think that will probably take some time. And we will surely see innovations which will make hybrid meetings a satisfactory experience, perhaps even in the Metaverse, and hopefully or surely environmentally efficient. Climate change and the environment have been one of the most discussed topics over the last years, and it is likely to continue for many years to come. The work of the ITU can hopefully contribute to the solutions to one of humankind's most pressing problems. The workshop will demonstrate use cases of environmentally efficient and eco-friendly applications of AI and other emerging technologies. The focus group has already completed 11 specifications, some of which have already been turned into ITU standards, while others are still in the standardization process, and about the same number of specifications are yet to come from the focus group by the end of the year. So I would like to thank the organizers of the workshop, the leadership team of the focus group, all the participants of this and past workshops and focus group meetings, and my ITU colleagues for their contributions to this topic. And I wish you all the best for the coming 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reinhard, for joining us from Geneva today. With that, I will now ask our first keynote to take over the floor. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Andreas Weber, Senior Expert at the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Regions and Tourism of Austria.
Thanks, dear ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Vice Minister Andreas Reinhard, it's an honor to me to speak to you today and share the stage with such top-class speakers. Let me give you a very warm welcome and thank you for presenting many opportunities with this conference. We have accompanied the ITU focus group from its beginning steps when the contemporary Vice Minister Andreas Reichert was working as the Federal Minister of Transport, Innovation and Technology 3 years ago. Since then, we have always been able to rely on a fruitful cooperation with you. Within our Department for Telecommunication, Postal Services and Mining, we want to promote currently digitalization closely together with the industry as well as we can. We are all aware of the importance of AI in almost every aspect of our lives. Moreover, AI is crucial when it comes to its use in combination with value added. It offers great chances and opportunities for industry, technological development and innovation. But we have to be careful about an over-regulation and overfloating administration to avoid showstoppers. For example, there is still a lot to be discussed in Austria on the subject of data protection, where over-regulation visually brings competitive disadvantages while other countries perform much better. This goes hand in hand with the activities in the field of security research and technology transfer, as well as the promotion of digitalization. Of course, we have to be extremely careful with how we make use of AI, where and when we use it. With recent developments in the war between Russia and Ukraine and the war scenarios that threaten our country, even greater caution is required. We, the Department for Telecommunication, Postal Services and Mining, are more than happy to attend and accompany this conference today. Thank you very much for this opportunity. A special thanks goes to Barbara for her efforts on this topic and to Charlene for the organization of the conference. We wish you all many interesting and fruitful discussions, and we are certain that today marks the foundation for many further panels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weber, for your words. Now we'd like to hand over the floor to our second keynote, Mr. Igor Sekardi, Deputy Director of International Affairs and Market at the Federation of Austrian Industries. Igor, over to you.
Thank you everyone, and thank you for the invitation to Kolm, to ITU, and to the whole organization team. I'm also a very warm welcome from my side to Vienna for those who traveled, and welcome to this important UN conference on on the SDGs and environmental efficiency. I may address you on behalf of the Federation of Austrian Industries. We are a voluntary association of 4,500 member companies, mainly in the sectors of manufacturing, logistics and energy. So fields which are, I would say, also very crucial for today's topics and today's panels. Most of our members are internationally active. Just to give you a flavor, last year Austrian companies exported goods worth 165 billion euros. That is in many fields, or many of those goods were in the fields of environmental technologies and also in innovative AI technologies. Austrian companies have also invested worldwide 2,060 billion so far, while the FDI in Austria amounts to 175 billion and creates almost 300 jobs in Austria. Altogether, Austrian GDP is generated by more than 50% by exports. Many Austrians who work in related fields know that, but for the international community, it's often quite surprising. I cannot stress enough that very relevant sectors in the export, in the Austrian export success story, are just in the fields which are discussed today. Also, against that background, international activities and also the UN are very important to us at the Federation. About today's topics. At the moment, from our point of view, we are facing two major challenges concerning this field: the digital transformation and the green transformation, which both have basically come together. And from our point of view, a very strong industrial sector is required to master those challenges, those combined challenges. We need to make use of key enabling technologies in order to keep Europe and Austria competitive. This is what we are all about when it comes to today's topics. Digitalization has not only boosted growth, it has also led to more crisis resilience, to higher revenue, to more employee and productivity growth, and is inevitable for our digital business location. Also, obviously, for us at the industrial sector, it is important to know that the digital penetration of the production processes is in full swing. And we need to increase the pace in order to profit from multiple applications like artificial intelligence. As far as the second challenge, which is from our point of view, green transformation is concerned, it is clear that both society and economy still have an enormous way to go there. I would like to endorse what the previous speaker has said, that we need to keep burdens, especially bureaucratic ones, as low as possible in order to harvest the different possibilities that are offered to us. We at the industrial production, at the industrial sector, we see ourselves as the key partner for innovative products, solutions, and technologies needed for this transformation, for the green transformation. But for us, it is crucial that the whole business location and also we as a productive and manufacturing sector stay competitive and hold the ground on the global market. That's why I emphasized also our position as an export nation very strongly. In addition, we also face the decarbonization of the industrial sector, and this is linked to enormous challenges. But the use of key enabling technologies like nanotechnology, microelectronics, and artificial intelligence offers, from our point of view, enormous potential. For example, the use of data and artificial intelligence applications for climate protection open, from our point of view, new solutions, ranging from climate-friendly transport planning through artificial intelligence to better recycling systems using our resources more efficiently. Precisely through such applications, technologies support us to achieve our climate targets, to use resources in a more forward-looking and more efficient way, and thus protect the environment, while at the same time open new value creation potential and thus increase competitiveness of production. So in short, or altogether, reaching the various climate goals or the goals we have set ourselves in with regard to climate protection internationally, speaking of the SDGs and other goals set up in the UN framework, but also if you want to see that way regionally, I'm thinking about the EU program Fit for 55 and economic prosperity, as well as competitiveness on the other hand, must not contradict each other, but be very much aligned, because otherwise, from our point of view, it just simply won't work. So industry and new innovative technologies can and will play a vital and crucial role in that. I would even go a step further and say they must play a crucial role in that, because otherwise we simply won't reach the ambitious goals that we have all set ourselves. Against this background, I wish everyone a very productive conference and many innovative insights. And once again, thank you very much for inviting me and for having me at this very valuable conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this keynote, Mr. Siccardi. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to Mr. Paolo Gemma, who is the co-chairman of ITUT Focus Group on AI and Environmental Efficiency, and also senior specialist at Huawei Technologies. Paolo, over to you.
Thank you, Charlene, and welcome to Vienna. It's really a pleasure. It's very interesting. This is the second time that we have a workshop and a physical meeting of the focus group, always in Vienna. And thank to Barbara, to all the Vienna organization to give us the chance after the winter time in the spring time to see Vienna another time. As said by Reinhard, this is the first ITU physical meeting after the COVID. And it's a very pleasure to be here, to see you as sometime face-to-face after a long time is that we joined just remotely. In our workshop, we try to analyze what is the situation of artificial intelligence, what we are making in our focus group. And I hope that this workshop will be interesting for the people here and for the people that are remotely connected. Please, if remotely you have some question, raise your hand or put the question on the chat, and then we can see also in the question and answer place, so we can see your question. We can try to answer from our side and our speaker, I hope. And on this, I think that is okay. I don't want to speak too much, and I suppose to give the floor, the chair to the next speaker, that is our friend Barbara. No?
Thank you very much, Co-Chairman Paolo, Gemma. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to our host, our kind host today, Ms. Margarete Kriz-Zwittkovits, Vice President of the Vienna Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You have the floor.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the Vienna Chamber of Commerce and Industry today, and thank you that you choose our location for holding this very important conference and workshops. Environmental protection and economic success are no opposites anymore. They nowadays go hand in hand, and that's very important for us. This is true not only for newly emerging companies, but also for the traditional businesses we represent also here. They can achieve savings, very important, through modern environmental technology, operate in more environmentally friendly manner, and achieve greater profit margins in effect. The global efforts to protect the environment and combat climate change have triggered a large potential of investment. And you also spoke about that, investments and also of new jobs, also a very important aspect we have to face. Funds of historic proportions are being raised at all levels, from the communities to the European Union, and of course in the private company field. The economic effect of this massive development is enormous. New jobs are being created, we spoke already about that, in all sectors that are directly or indirectly linked to environmental protection. New technologies, procedures and processes are coming on to the market that make our world more environmentally friendly and at the same time more efficient. That's an aim we also have to follow and can be marketed well internationally. But Vienna is also among the smart city leaders with a couple of aspects. Cities play an important role in the climate protection. Over 80% of emissions are produced in cities. We therefore also have a special responsibility to work on solutions to actively develop and drive them forward. Cities must make a significant contribution to achieving the Paris climate targets. The goal, after all, is to limit the global temperature increase to 1.5 to a maximum of 2 degrees Celsius. And after all, climate change is about a joint global effort. It starts on a small scale and with each country in each region. So we are part of that, an active part of the process of climate change. In the smart city, modern technologies from the fields of energy, mobility, urban planning, administration, and communications are to be networked in such a way as to improve the quality of life for residents. Especially in times of climate crisis, it's important to take a close look at which smart city ideas and concepts are suitable for Vienna in order to become more efficient and more climate friendly, as well as more livable through the use of modern technologies. The Viennese economy can boost a long list of companies. You also mentioned it already, also the industry play a very important and big role that have developed solutions for the problems of the future and are thus in high demand both at home and abroad. We also have a high portion of export in our country. It's about 60% export part we have from the whole economy. Whether it is the construction of new photovoltaic plants, a very important situation now we have to avoid the gas and other fossil methods, modern waste management, energy saving, water treatment, or thermal renovation. Viennese companies have answers and are top in implementation of all that items. So these examples show that environmental and climate protection is an opportunity for business, and companies have been taking advantage of it for a long time. I wish you every success for the Congress and lots of good discussions and workshops, and thank you for the organization of this very important Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Margarete, Vice President of the Vienna Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for sharing your views. Now, I would like to turn over to Dr. Barbara Kolm, who is the Vice Chairman of ITUT Focus Group on AI for Environmental Efficiency, also Director at the Austrian Economic Center and Vice President of the Austrian National Bank. And Barbara has been instrumental in organizing these meetings in Vienna today. Barbara, over to you.
Thank you very much, Charlene. Also, thank you for being our MC today and for running or for helping us organize the conference with your team in Geneva. First of all, but I'd like to thank Dr. Margarete Kriz-Zwittkovits for hosting us here at this beautiful premises of the Vienna Chamber of Commerce, which is actually brand new and meets all those technologies that we need for today's remote meetings. And I would also like to welcome our 121 participants who are online and who will unfortunately not be able to have the wonderful Viennese hospitality life. But we hope all that you will be back very soon to visit us, our beautiful city, with all the wonderful economic opportunities that have already been mentioned by the Vice President of the Chamber, but also to relax and enjoy and also see what a city can do if it works and focuses on smartness and modern technology. Without further ado, I would also like to thank my colleague here, Paolo Gemma, from Huawei, and actually who is the co-chairman at many of the working groups that we have been pushing certain topics together, for being with us. And Paolo mentioned the last live meeting was hosted in Vienna, and now it's the first meeting after the lockdown again. So probably this is a good signal that we will have no further lockdowns and will hopefully meet life in the future. And since we're talking about modern technologies, I would also like to thank Diplomat Dr. Weber from the Federal Ministry that is actually the partner of ITU in Geneva and collaborating on all those issues that are related to our working groups and for today's and tomorrow's aspects. And also thank you to Dr. Sekardi from the Federation of Industry, who has been very instrumental and forward guiding with regards to modern technologies and showing and making clear that without innovation, we will not go anywhere. And I think this is a truly important point when we discuss our today's and tomorrow's topics. And let me add one more thing. We have heard about various key elements, but we are now in a world that has seen at least 3 instrumental external shocks. And the first one was definitely COVID. The second one is our climate issue and topic that we need to tackle. And the third one is the geopolitical shifts and imbalances that we see these days due to the war in Ukraine. All those 3 external shocks will, of course, either trigger our technologies that we have to discuss today and tomorrow, and what we can do to support economic growth and well-being, but they also have a consequence for our finance markets and also for our monetary system. And those things must not be unconsidered. After all, we have inflation on its way on both sides of the pond, and also in Asia, in some economies. So those things need to be taken into consideration when we also discuss environmental efficiency and modern technologies. And believing in innovation and creativity, I think that it's an opportunity for us, a true opportunity today to discuss those topics, and that go hand in hand with creation of wealth for everybody and get people out of poverty. And therefore, I would simply invite you all to truly join our discussions and definitely use the opportunity to pester our speakers and our participants today with questions, and make sure that we have a vivid and lively debate. And again, it's a dispute. It can be a dispute, because without discussion, we will not get anywhere. It's not that somebody says, you know, this is right and this is wrong. No, we can only get good solutions if we collaborate, divide labor, and cooperate.
All right, everyone, welcome back for this first session of our workshop today, which will be 30 minutes long. It'll be a chat about the metaverse and the environmental impact and potential of building Web 3.0. I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator today, Mr. Markus Lieb, who's an economic journalist at Leoben, Austria, together with 2 panelists, Professor Rüdiger Stix, honorary professor at Sigmund Freud University, Austria, and also at the Ministry of Defense, and Professor Giacomuzzi, associate professor at the University of Poltava and University of Lviv in Ukraine. Now, I would like to hand over to the moderator to run this session. Mr. Lieb, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm a journalist, and I'm honored to be your host for the next 30 minutes with 2 professors I know well and I admire, Professor Stix, Professor Giacomuzzi. Our topic today is the metaverse, environmental impact and potential of building Web 3.0. Let me start this session by quoting the latest report from San Francisco-based Grand View Research. They say the global metaverse market size is predicted to attain nearly $700 billion by 2030. The market is expected to witness a compound annual growth rate of nearly 40% for the next 8 years. This owing to increased demand from end-use industry, which prominently include media and entertainment, and education, aerospace, and defense. So that's a forecast of a dynamic growth and the huge financial potential of the metaverse. My questions to the expert are about the opportunities and the risk, especially when we consider our smart cities. So let me start with you, Professor Giacomuzzi. When we consider the environmental impact of the metaverse, do you see opportunities?
Yeah, I see a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges regarding the metaverse. As you see the metaverse as a big idea now from Mark Zuckerberg, and as an idea, it's a construct. So we can see it now as a construct which should bring together everything with everything. So keep that in your mind, bringing together everything with everything. So considering that, we will have enormous merging of cultures. We will have enormous merging of working attitudes, of working time, of human beings from different cultures, from different religions. So, and I think this will be a big opportunity to break down borders, to break down cultural concerns, to bring together really cultures from all over the world, from Alaska up to I don't know where, to India. So this is quite a big opportunity from a human point of view.
Thank you. Professor Stix, all these opportunities, do we have the right framework, the framework conditions to get the benefits from these opportunities? What's your opinion?
I think not yet, because my distinguished colleague Salvatore Giacomuzzi pointed out from Alaska to India, at least just have a look at the Indo-Pacific realm with India and China, and of course Korea, Japan, and Far East Indian states. You have more than half of mankind living there, with many religions and many ideologies, and of course many different regulatory frameworks. And if you just have to look who is looking on the basics, you have different answers, and answers to at least 3 meta movements, meta waves, if you would call it, regarding to the metaverse. But not only the metaverse. We have involving volume of data. If the former CEO from Google and Alphabet, Dr. Eric Schmidt, he was chairman of the NSCAI, the National Commission on Artificial Intelligence, bipartisan in the USA. If he is right, then we had 1 zettabyte maybe until 2012, 2016. Now we are holding, I would say, with the standard of maybe 33, maybe 40 zettabyte, according to the European Commission. And it's a similar estimation like done by Eric Schmidt. And within the next 5 years, we'll have 175 zettabytes. And this amount of data is nearly unimaginable. You have the second wave, you have the wave of computing powers. You all know the Moore's law. It's not a natural law, it's from Gordon Moore, and it's similar to Jonathan Comey with Comey's law. But we have increasing computing powers, and maybe with the next steps, neuromorphic computing, maybe photonic computing, and of course, within 5 to 10 years, maybe quantum computing. We need the maths for quantum computing. But you have these general conditions around and in the metaverse, and we have not the regulations yet.
when we talk about bringing cultures together, bringing people together, we also have to take a look at the last half year, what happened. We also have to talk about that. I mean, we were on a good way to tear down borders, but now we have new borders. What does this mean to the metaverse? Let me stay with you, Professor Stix. What does this mean to the metaverse?
Well, we have new borders, and we have new real borders, and of course we have new regulatory borders. You have the view at the current geopolitical situation, and my guess is that it will not be one metaverse, it will be many metaverses, especially not only because of a more or less free market in the Western world, but because I think at least the Russians will have their own metaverse, but of course the Chinese, the Indians, and maybe Japanese and Koreans will have their own metaverse. And these metaverses will be interchangeable if you go from Tokyo to Washington or to Brussels or to Vienna or Geneva. That's easy possible, but it will not be that easy going from Beijing to Mumbai or from Mumbai to, let's say, to Pakistan, or from Pakistan to Tehran, from Tehran, you name it, you get it. So I think we will have many new challenges with these new borders.
Professor Giacomuzzi, you as a psychologist, a psychotherapist, you know well about humans, and well, now we see war, we see a terrible time in Europe, in very near our border. But what do you think? Is this a threat to the metaverse, to the use, or will it last, and will it be a part of getting peace back?
Oh yeah, I think so. So I hope only so that we will have peace in a short time regarding the ongoing situation in Ukraine. What we need are experts, international experts in computing and programming, and a lot, we don't have those people. We don't have those people. So now we have two new efforts, which are starting in Vienna. I think by autumn of this year, they are creating a new kind of universities, a new kind of education by programming. So by doing it without professors, and where an international panel of experts are considering the results and the homeworks of the students. So it will take place in Vienna. I think there are two movements, which one of them is even for free. So gifted students can join those efforts for free to get specialists in computing and programming. And this is what will happen also in the future. So because the traditional university can't or cannot cover the needs which we have in industries and in the world. So we have to take a new path to form the future, to manage the future of metaverses and so on.
So Professor Giacomuzzi is talking about the human resources that we need to get out the benefit we could. So Professor Stix, from your point of view, where do you see the big challenges?
I think the biggest challenge is the human resources, because one thing is how to handle the metaverse. I agree completely with Salvatore Giacomuzzi, but let it make me crystal clear. If you have acting humans, we have the humans within a society, we have the societal impact, and we have the regulations. We have the regulations which don't fit. We have the problem that our traditional institutions, our traditional regulations, our traditional frameworks in the laws don't fit for the challenges of a metaverse, don't fit for the challenges of this kind of computing power, especially if you have the simultaneity, the connection, everything with everything at more or less real time, as Salvatore pointed out. So we have no existing system in the whole world, and you have a very, very problematic, maybe dystopian challenge. One say, let's say, Überwachungskapitalismus and some kind of George Orwell Big Brother, and the idea of trying some central planning for artificial intelligence. We think the only chance to get to new regulations, we need a free market for regulations. We need a fair competition between regulations, and we have to look and to test the regulations we are applying to the use of internet, and especially of internet and combination of human computing integration, be it from augmented and virtual reality to neural lace a la Elon Musk and others. But maybe that's a second question.
Professor Giacomuzzi, what do we need to get smart cities out of that? Also at the building web 3.0, and not get out spying cities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You mean regarding the metaverse in spying cities?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yes, I was we are always talking about smart cities and thinking of the benefits. Now we heard of the threats, about the risks, and so I said spying cities, spying on their own citizens.
Yeah, you see, there's an interesting survey. Who wants to use the metaverse? And it's quite interesting because people from, let's say, 45 up to 60, 61, they not totally agree to use the metaverse. So actually, we are talking of a younger generation from 14 years up to 35, up to 40 years, who are willing to use the metaverse. Who wants to use his own avatar? Who wants to use an augmented reality every day? Who wants to use digital Googles for 3, 4, 6, or 8 hours a day? So this is quite challenging because nobody knows what will happen if we wear Googles for 4, 5, 6 hours in the virtual reality using an avatar. And I agree totally with Dr. Stix. What happens if an avatar commits a crime? Who will punish it? What will be the regulation? What will be the tribunal instance? So these are all questions which are still completely open. We have no idea what will happen regarding that. So we have a lot of threats regarding or going into a digital metaverse in an augmented reality. So there are millions of questions which are not solved. Even the internet today is not really free of crimes.
That's very interesting. Let's stay with that. I mean, we have seen a very big step in digitalization, in changing of our working habits with COVID-19. We have now home office as a very big topic. We have video conferences just as useful as and in a multiple as never before. So we are going, we were forced to go that way.
Yeah.
But that's also a way in a metaverse, where you don't know if everybody is really listening, is really understanding. So from your point as a psychologist, where are the challenges?
I think at least in regard to my generation, I can't even imagine what will happen in a metaverse. So I think we start now by autumn in schools to teach children to be responsive regarding or the use of digital technologies, to distinguish real news from fake news. So this is all new to us, and we have no competence. At least my generation is without a competence, because we hadn't had even computers in my age of school. So I think the big challenge is to make the younger generation fit for those developments, for those deployments. I think this is one of the big challenges, because we are getting old. We won't use the metaverse maybe in that amount as a young boy of 10 or 11 years will does it in the near future. I think we have to take a closer look to our younger generation and to make them competent in using those digital technologies. This will be one of the big challenges for the future.
Professor Stix, you as an expert for artificial intelligence, do you see this new generation Professor Giacomuzzi is talking about? Is this generation coming up?
Partially, but of course, even the young generation consists of human being. And a human being is for maybe 100,000 years. And if you take some ancestors, maybe some million years, evolving into something what we have today with our societies and with our personal needs. What we created, and we still have created, what we created is an artificial intelligence, I would say a kind of Gödel machines. And it's not the artificial intelligence you all have in your machines, in your computers. That's an official, these are artificial intelligence too, but these are artificial intelligence you can train. You can at least handle as you can train dogs or horses. And of course, something can happen with horses or something can happen with dogs, but you can, I would say, more or less train it. Today, we have the idea of Kurt Gödel regarding the findings in 1933. Today, we have the computing power. Today, we have the algorithms. And today, we have it in the West, for example, GPT-3 and going on. And we have it in the Asian sphere, Wudao 2.0, for example, which are able to find new goals after solving the goals without humans. So you have some kind of a nearly AGI, and nobody in the whole world, and be it a young generation or be it an older generation or be it the example of Henry Kissinger, who started to handle AI in the year 2017. He was 90 years that, now he's 99 and writing about AI and the problems of AI, together with Eric Schmidt, by the way, Age of AI. But take the 99 years old Henry Kissinger and take the 9 months old child, be it in Mumbai, be it in Tokyo, be it in Washington, or be it here in Vienna. We are not prepared to handle these challenges of AI, and we have no regulatory frameworks, especially the existing regulatory frameworks are contradictory.
So it's time now to take questions from the audience, please.
Hi, my name is Maria Pavlova from Fitch Ratings. Thank you very much for taking my question. Your opinions really resonate with me, and my question is around tackling these problems. Just to give you some background of my work, I'm an AI researcher and I focus on climate risk. And one of the areas of my expertise is actually making AI more sustainable. But this is part of academia, my academic work. I'm trying to transfer this to industry, to my employer. So my question to you is, to tackle these challenges, do you believe industries and government should work more closely with universities? Because this is where research happens. Thank you.
I agree completely. And you have to make it possible that you have an open exchange between different political positions in different governments and in parliaments, of course, with the voters, if you have democracies, but even with all other kinds of governments and with the different kinds of academia. You know, we have very heavy discussions in your field, in my field, in our fields, and it's very important, and it's one of the most important tasks we have at UN-ITU in our focus groups, to find a system where everyone who is working on this field to get better enhancement of this environmental energies and all other kinds, to have a field where you have an open exchange, an open discussion, and open for developments to get the best developments, to have survival of the best among open discussion.
Thank you.
So at the beginning, you mentioned about opportunities. No, so considering the environmental cost of these technologies, not only in terms of CO2, but also the social risk. So where do you think that in which application, Metaverse, can the opportunities, the benefit can outweigh the cost? And I think it's important to define this domain to avoid investing on technologies that might even deepen existing problems. No, what do you think about?
Of course, it depends on which technology. I agree completely with you that not every of these new technologies has the same impact. And some have more costs, and maybe you have a longer period to getting a maturity. But it's more or less the same system to handle the complexity of these developments, to get a fair play and a fair competition between these different techniques, between these different technological approaches. And of course, for example, we have Dr. Martin Rabe with us at the afternoon, and please stay tuned. For example, if you have autonomous mobility, you have different types of energy you can use in autonomous mobility. You cannot say, you cannot order, you cannot dictate to say, well, in 10 years, autonomous mobility in this or that scenario is better with, let's say, this kind of energy or that kind of energy. We have to test, we have to try, and we have to try to get the transparency of the effects. Then we can say, well, battery is better than, let's say, synthetic fuel, or synthetic fuel is better than whatever, coal and steam. You don't agree about autonomous driving?
Actually, my question was a little bit different. So it wasn't related to how. Okay, so All right.
Near to my different don't work. It's very directional microphone.
So my question was a little bit different. So I didn't mean which type of technologies maybe are more energy efficient, also because actually we cannot say this, no? So it really depends on the solution and how we use it. But I meant, in your opinion, where do you see more opportunity, considering that, I mean, each application, each solution has a environmental cost, and also several, I mean, metaverse application have a social risk as well associated, I mean, depending on the application. So where, in which domain do you see like larger benefits, and do you see that we should focus our energy and investments? Because metaverse is very generic, so in which application domain within smart cities, for instance, or thank you.
I think this is a very tough question, because at this point, nobody can answer this really with some evidence-based data. I think this is impossible. I see it much more as, I would like to compare it to the 50s, where scientists from medicine, from natural sciences, from social sciences, were coming together with Warren McCullough, Norbert Wiener, Heinz von Förster in the United States, and they were creating systemic thinking and how to understand procedures from a systemic point of view. And I think right now we are at the same point. So we have to bring together different disciplines from the university, from the industry, from environmental services, and to think about those problems, because I think it wouldn't be honest to give an answer to that question, because we have no evidence data regarding that, in my opinion, at least.
Okay, so what do you mean by data? I think that, I mean, I see that there are actually application domains where that can have a greater impact on the sustainability transition, while actually others have no or a very minor impact. So I think that this is a very important question to, I mean, understand or define areas with a domain, areas with a higher potential. And once we define these areas, then we can invest. And I mean, the data, I think that comes after, no, in how we can solve problems or design solution more effectively and so on.
You're completely right. And of course, Salvatore is completely right. But maybe you're discussing on different time scales. For example, if we are asked what will be the impact of the metaverse, let's say in 5 to 10 years, we have to answer we have not any data, at least about 2/3 of the possible solutions, because we have no data about which kind of metaverse will be based on photonic computing, what kind of metaverse will be based on quantum computing, which kind of quantum computing. So we have no idea which quantum computing will have which environmental impact with the same metaverse. So I think we have to try in our work here together, all together, and your work. You're very experienced in your work and very valuable work. We have to try to make the very complex process in a form where you have, with all the contradictory approaches, and of course the contradictory regulations, the competing technologies in a fair and transparent form to see which will gain which data.
I want to take a question from a remote participant. The question is, how does the metaverse coexist and relates with nature?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. So we cannot expect that the metaverse now will be used by 100% of the whole population. No, this is impossible. So I think within the maybe next 30, 40 or 50 years, we will still have people who will deny the metaverse, who will even be more radical to not to use digital technologies. So I think also in the near future, so I'm talking about the next 50 years, we will have two metaverses, a natural metaverse and the digital metaverse together. So there will be a coexistence. So we can't expect that we are going totally within the metaverse, because it's quite impossible. Imagine if you need a surgery, you can't use your avatar losing your kidneys or I don't know what. So this will be quite impossible. But I think in the next years we will have maybe a fruitful coexistence of the reality and of the metaverse. I think this will be the way. And just taking a small regard to your question, I appreciate the question. And I think what we can't even imagine is when we are putting together different types of our being, industry, social sciences, whatever you want, I think new elements will raise on an emerging system. So they will raise new elements which we can't even imagine now. So as Werner Heisenberg said it a couple of years ago, so the whole part is more as the parts, the small units of it. So we will have a new dimension of it. I think this will be also a very interesting process which we have to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a question? Yes, please.
I just wasn't sure if there's enough time.
No, please make the question.
Yes, my name is Veronica Keki. I am a master's student. I have studied sustainable development before, including environmental psychology, and now I study digital leadership. So I'm interested in the intersection of these two areas. And my question is a follow-up on what Professor Stix was mentioning about Metaverse, that it has the potential of generating enormous amounts of data. And of course, that has very obvious environmental implications when we talk about processing of all this data. And I guess my question is a bit of a speculative nature, but I was wondering, do you think that it is a sustainable strategy when we have this sort of technology with a potential, with a huge potential environmental impact, just to release it into the wild, so to speak, without any possible limitations? Or do you see any room here for considering some form of limitations, perhaps through the kind of social norms that we are setting around, because this is a whole new culture that we're talking about. People are getting used to completely new daily practices of how they're interacting with these different AI systems, so that are becoming a part of their life. And I'm referring perhaps maybe nudging this sort of thing, or I just can't help seeing the conflict here, that there's so much work that is being done, for instance, in other aspects, such as our consumption, transportation. It just feels like we're trying to pinch every possible source of emissions that we can address. And then at the same time, concurrently, we are releasing this, monster, so to speak, that has the potential of generating even bigger negative environmental impact. And we are not imposing even nearly as much of limitations as we are imposing in other areas. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get the question now. Just in a few words, what's your question?
Yes, the question is, so if we compare to other areas such as consumption and transportation, where we are imposing limitations, do you feel that there's potential room for imposing similar kind of limitations in regards to AI? But obviously it conflicts with the rights of expression and such things in the use of these technologies.
That's a very big question. I'm not sure if you have an answer to that. It's a very interesting question, but I think this question will be asked years and years after. Please, you want? Sorry, we're running out of time. I know.
We agree about your analysis.
I just wanted to offer my 2 cents on the topic. Actually, there are companies like DeepMind, which is part of Google, that have already reduced their AI environmental footprint by as much as 40%, and that comes from their data centers. They also publish reports in conjunction with, I would say, the most famous AI researchers in the world, like Andrew Ng, etc. There is this massive 1,000-page report. If you haven't read it, you should. It touches on literally every industry and what AI can do to improve these industries, but also how to reduce its own environmental footprint. And I like that you mentioned the data generation. It's exponential, and actually this is something I'm working on in my PhD thesis. So I'm actually looking into DNA as a storage medium, because it allows you to store more data in less space. So that probably partially answers your question as to how to tackle the environmental footprint generated by AI. And you're right, I mean, ML algorithms, supercomputers, they generate massive carbon footprint, but this is already being looked into, and I'm happy to talk more offline.
Thank you very much. That's a very good point. Thank you for adding that point. I think we have to come to an end now. Sorry, madam. We had 30 minutes, and we found out that 30 minutes is a very short time, and this discussion will go on and on and on. So I thank you very much for all the points we got now, and I give back after 40 minutes, I guess. Sorry for that.
No problem. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from lunch. I hope you enjoyed. So I am pleased to introduce this afternoon's session 3, on measuring the environmental efficiency of digital technologies. I'm pleased to be joined by Paolo Gemma, who will be our moderator today, together with Dr. Christoph Schneider, Managing Director at the Economica Institute, Austria. And we have 2 remote panelists with us today, Ms. Shuanggang Qi, Vice Chairman of ITU-T Study Group 5, who works at the Chinese Academy of Telecommunication and Research of MIIT, and Mr. John Smiklas from Canada, who is also an auditor at the United for Smart Sustainable Cities. Paolo, over to you.
Okay, thank you to anyone. As usual, I don't know why I need always restart the session after the lunch. It's my rule. Okay, so we can restart our workshop, and I will start with Christoph. He said, okay, what do you think is will digital technology affect enterprise environmental efficiency equally?
Is it on? There. Thank you very much, Paolo, and thank you very much, Charlene. I also would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to be on this panel and a part of this conference. I think it's extremely important to discuss these issues that we have before us, and partly because in public they're fairly contentious issues, in fact, and the environment digital technologies have among the public have a general impression that they're supposed to make our lives easier, to put it bluntly. Now, this is the issue that I will be talking a little bit about from the enterprise perspective and not so much from the public perspective. Paolo just asked me if digital technologies will affect enterprises' environmental efficiency in the same way across all enterprises. Well, there's something that I can talk about in general, and then I can even say a few words to studies that we have done on this issue. To make a long story short, the answer is unfortunately no. It is not equal, and it's the simple reason that at least the firms that we have studied, but we have looked at studies in other countries that are of similar design. It's like it is with human beings. These entrepreneurial organisms all have different characteristics, and there are traits that you can follow according to particular characteristics of the enterprises, their location, their size, the type of activity that they are working in, that they are producing for, the position in the value chain where they are at, and it's not just whether they are in a high-tech field or not. That is not as relevant at all. What is relevant, according to our studies, is the firm size, for example. So one would assume that it's not too surprising, but according to our studies, and it's the different aspects of what the digital technologies are doing for the enterprise with respect to environmental efficiency. And in general, so it means that larger enterprises have already assumed gains from implementing issues. And in fact, the largest enterprises, whether it is in Austria or internationally, in fact, they're actually trying to position themselves as environmental leaders, because there are three very important, you have to stop me when my answer is getting too long, but there are three really important factors. One is, what is the actual concrete definition of environmental efficiency on the one hand? That is absolutely essential. And then what are you talking about when you're talking about technology? Is it just an enabling, just under, quote unquote, just an enabling technology, or is it actually the implementation of a new technology? Is it one that the enterprise has invented itself, or one that it has acquired? And the second part is the goals that the enterprise is following. Are these goals created as a result of market interaction? Is it an issue of demand or supply induced change in that enterprise? And that is very unique, because at enterprise level decisions are often not congruent with macroeconomic or macro policy decisions. So goals can be quite different. A large political area, whether it is a nation or a group of nations like the European Union or the United States is a group of states, big area, they can determine a particular goal that you want to attain in that area for environmental efficiency, for example, or emissions or whatever, and this goal may not be congruent at all with what an enterprise has set as its goal, and that is at the micro level or at the corporate level. And when I say that, people go, oh my God, you know, these terrible enterprises, you know, they're always, you know, polluting the environment. But it's not true from that perspective. Don't interpret things that I do not say. It can easily be that enterprises or corporates have set higher goals for themselves. You see, sometimes implementing a particular and this is a fundamental area in public economics often, is that you implement a particular goal, a particular limit or something, and in fact, that is far below that which the market itself would in fact attain. So that's a second area. And the third is bureaucracy. And it's something that we sometimes also ignore a little bit too much because it's a large burden. It creates large costs. And that's why the digital technologies can definitely affect the environmental efficiency of enterprises in a different way, because it's very rare that administrative red tape or bureaucracy, laws, rules, standards are totally equivalent across all enterprises. Very, very rarely. You have exceptions for these groups. You know, they're the energy intensive industries, or they're the small enterprises, or the micro enterprises, the sole proprietorships. Everybody has a little bit of a, in Austria, they call it the extrawurst. In Canada, we call it baloney. So there's a lot of baloney in the system, and that's causing a lot of red tape. And that's why you will also not have the opportunity to attain this equivalent level of consistent, at least not for a while. And there's other aspects, but I think that's a long answer for a very short question. But I guess the summary is no, unfortunately, enterprises will not be benefiting or equally or being affected equally by the digital technologies with respect to environmental efficiency. Paolo, is that okay?
It's okay. Thank you, Christophe, for this.
Molto answer.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, then, okay, is the turn of Xi from China. I hope that you are us, Xi.
Hello, can you hear me, Paolo?
Yes, very well, as you are here, sit near me. Fantastic. Okay, the question for you is how ITU standard on data center infrastructure management system based on big data, artificial intelligence technology can increase the energy efficiency? I know that this is a topic that we discuss a lot in SG5.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Paolo, and hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm very honored to be here to exchange our ideas on this very important topic on energy efficiency. You know, when we talk energy efficiency on data center, now we just look a bit in ITUT study group 5. We have plenty of recommendations already developed, you know, from study group 5. And I think we divided into some different levels of energy efficiency. Then first is equipment level, which is, for example, in ILO 1310, we have equipment energy efficiency metrics and the measurement. Then just now you said on data center, or we also have energy efficiency metrics and the measurement in base stations, which is contained in ILO 13, maybe 1350 or something. I forgot the number. But also we have one recommendation on ILO 1305. Which is energy management system on using AI and big data technology. Then I think using AI technology, we also have two levels. First is in the equipment level, we use this new technology. Then we increase this equipment energy efficiency with dynamic controlling, you know. And another level is very important now, which is we dynamic controlling all the equipments together to, for example, we control loads and we control our equipment switch on or off, or remote mode, maybe sleeping mode, etc., to save energy. So this is very important or hot topic personally, or from my side also in China. We're using this a new technology or digital technology itself to our field in base station, in data center, to increase the whole energy efficiency, and also sometimes maybe not only increase the energy efficiency, but also decrease the GHG emission. When we say increase energy efficiency, yes, sure, it will decrease the GHG emission. But another point, maybe we push forward the reuse or circular economy on the material supply chain, etc., to have the sustainable development goals. Okay, maybe a little bit short, but this is my understanding on the topic you mentioned, Paolo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chi. Sorry, one moment, Chi, because we have some issue. Okay, I'm sorry because we are losing one participant from remote. From Canada, I don't know what happened.
John, yes.
John.
Here's a blackout.
I don't know. We go to the mountains and we never go back.
But you are lucky, you know, all of you can stay in the room and meet together and exchange ideas. But from my side, just staying remote. But I'm so happy to see you on the screen also. Hello to everybody.
And, we need to thank a lot of you because I know that you are in holiday today.
Yes, today is the first holiday, but it's okay. I'm at home. Maybe a little bit noisy, you know. My little boy always go in and out.
We need a young participant to our group.
He can give some presentation in Chinese and Mongolian, but not in English. Sorry.
Okay.
Just to have you found John? Maybe it is too early for him to connect.
Not so much, I think.
Not so much. Okay, then fine.
Okay, in any case, we continue. We will see if he will join a little later. Okay, Christopher, going back to you, what do you think are the prerequisites for driving the environmental efficiency of digital technology in an enterprise? What should be really the key factor for this?
Paolo, that's a very good question. Thank you for that question. It's something people often forget to ask because if you always only look at the outcome and the result, which everybody's really keen on nowadays, because looking at the input side is really not very popular because that's only a cost side often. And they're looking at the output, the outcome side. We tend to forget what the prerequisites may be. One thing I wanted to deposit actually right at the beginning, but I'll do it now, is that we forget sometimes that technologies in general, digital technologies even more, also have a life cycle like other products. And oh, that must have been her little boy. And this life cycles of technologies are very important because one of the major prerequisites for the dissemination of technology, which is essential for its success, is the potential for assimilating that technology. So just because there is a technology available, a digital technology available for increasing environmental efficiency, may not actually mean that you will have an improvement in the environment or in the environmental efficiency. In fact, sometimes, and here, unfortunately, I mean, people have different opinions on this, and the jury is a little bit out, but there's some investigation being on this. And that is, why is that so? Well, when new technologies are implemented, they're just like other products. They're not as tested, of course, as when they have matured. So at the beginning, when they're implemented, they may actually not yet serve the optimal purpose. And they may also not be allocating the resources perfectly yet. Normally in the past, you had very long test phases before you implemented things in general. You know, everything from a drug to a new piece of food or a new component of your car or whatever, and technology just the same. These cycles have been reduced massively, okay? You have to bring it online because it's got to be a return on investment. It's got to start working. Now, what we have is a reaction often, not the market reacting negatively, but we often actually have policymakers reacting to this technology. They call it state of the art. But why is it state of the art? Not many people reflect on at what point you are in that life cycle of that particular technology. So what can happen? You can actually freeze it a little bit because of the reaction of policy in a particular phase. I mean, it's beautiful being a teenager, but I don't know if you want to be a teenager your whole life, right? It's nice being a retired person too, but okay, this is probably a bad argument. You want to stretch that as long as you can, but right, right. So anyway, so what you have to, what I say, and particularly at the enterprise level, is you have to make the framework conditions optimal for the assimilation of technologies to allow them to develop and to improve and to mature. Here is the combination to the policy level. The policy level is not allowed to react too fast to create a norm and say, oh no, and now, you know, this building material is only allowed to have this particular, you know, in 2.5 years, it's irrelevant. You've got a much better one already. The nice thing is big companies, because they want to stay ahead of the technological frontier, they want to increase their monopoly rents as much as possible, even if they're in a market with competitors, they will advance anyway. But we have a lot of areas, especially with respect to environmental technologies, that are supposed to be a general societal gain where you don't have that effect, and where you have a particular interest of the state to think that they are doing something good for the public in general. And in that way, they can hinder it. Also, what is very important is that you allow this type of innovation leadership. We've done some tests on this, and we've done some study on this. So companies, firms that are early movers on.
J'étais muté. Dis-moi. Ouais, laisse tomber quoi. Fais péter. Ouais.
Okay, he's coming in.
Geneva, please mute your mic.
Right. So the innovation leaders, the drivers, if you look at their performance, you see what an enormous benefit it is. The studies that we have done, the research that we have done has shown that by investing more in these digital technologies that are relevant to your production and process systems, you're actually becoming much more resilient as a firm, which is important in general also, but you're increasing your potential for raising your sales and your productivity. What you need though, besides the framework conditions, is, like I said, this investment component. That means you have to finance, you have to be able to finance these investments in the digital technologies that are improving your environmental efficiency. If you do not have the potential to do that, right, That means, for example, investments in types of R&D, software and stuff have to be recognized as true investments, and not just the physical investments, you know, not just a building, a machine, a truck, or something like this. Intangible investments have to be recognized as legitimate investments, and that by the entire system, okay? Not just by an enterprise, of course, logical, but it has to be recognized by the tax system, for example, right? Because then the banks will recognize it as an investment, as a piece of capital, right? You can take out a higher loan if your immaterial investments are actually have a value, right? But this investment component is enormously important, and the potential to finance it, the need to finance it, the ability to finance it is a maximum prerequisite, okay? And it's not gonna, I mean, somebody's gonna say, oh yeah, that's obvious. I mean, poor countries, you know, you cannot have substantial investment in digital technologies that improve environmental efficiency because they're poor. Well, that's not true, right? Because you just have to have the right amount for that type of activity. And what you also need, and here Austria is unfortunately, we're realizing it every day. I can give you lots of examples in even environmental technologies, you know, wind technology, solar technology, solar panels and so on. You need to advance the skills in the labor market, okay? So you can set a goal of increasing your renewable energy sources, for example, and making even enterprises try to achieve those goals, right? So you don't want to have solar panels way out in, you know, greenfield solar panels, put them on the roof somewhere, okay? So some places actually have to change the laws to be allowed to put them on the roof. But anyway, and then you can put it on the roof, and they say, great, and then we will increase the area, the solar panel in our whatever country, state, jurisdiction, municipality, whatever it is. But what if you do not have the necessary plumbers or electricians or, you know, guys who build scaffolding so you can put it up on the side of the whether it is a house or a building of a company is irrelevant. But you need all these type of skills to be able to then implement implement your investment. And that's why the labor market and the skills that you need for your labor market, the continuing education, the re-education, and all that is another major factor. So like I said, you need the policy framework conditions. I explicitly did not say political. You need the right policy and the framework conditions. You need you need sufficient capital. You need the right skills on the labor market, and then of course you need the right energy entrepreneurial strategy. But that will happen if you have these other prerequisites available in the market.
Thank you for this interesting point. Now I think I see John online. Finally, he arrived from Canada.
Yeah, I was here from the beginning, but for some reason it wasn't. You weren't able to hear me or see me.
Okay, John. So we move now from enterprise to city, and can you say to us how do city use the Unity for Smart Sustainability KPI to measure the environmental efficiency? Possible not in 4 hours.
Yes, thank you, Paolo. To give people a little bit of background, we've worked with well over 100 cities globally in implementing the United for Smart Sustainable Cities key performance indicators. These key performance indicators measure a city's performance in 3 dimensions of economy, environment, and society and culture. In particular, in the environmental section and the economy section, we do look at a number of areas of consumption. And we also look at how people are using ICTs and digital technologies to monitor and measure those consumptions. So that could be in the areas such as water, air, electricity, energy, waste, wastewater, etc. So cities use that, and through our process of verification and reporting, we've developed a number of sort of benchmarking reports, which provides cities with the ability to determine where they need to focus on going forward. And sometimes it's simply just this reporting versus benchmarks that make a city understand that it does have an issue or a problem. I give you an example, for instance, from the work we did with a number of cities in Norway. All the cities, when they started looking at their data together in particular, found that their water systems, their water delivery systems for drinking water were extremely inefficient. They were old, they were leaking, but the cities didn't realize the problem until they all looked at it together and all decided, why are we so, you know, on our sort of traffic light benchmarking program, why are we all red here? And once they looked at it, they went, we didn't realize this was as big a problem until we compared what we did versus these sort of global benchmarks and went through this verification process. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea. We're also now expanding these key performance indicators to look at digital transformation, where again, we'll look at how cities are using digital technologies and other metrics on their sort of journey to digital transformation. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you, John. Now we move into we have a part of this session that is practiced in 3 different topics. Is Chi, can you give us some example now to implement, to use smart energy, seek recommendation to achieve a sustainable development goal? So what we are doing for that.
Thank you, Paolo. And before touching this, I just would like to give very general information on recommendation from ITUT Study Group 5. Just now, what you asked on data center energy efficiency is the first big part, you know, also leading by Paolo working party too, is greening of ICT, which we focuses on the ICT self is green, energy efficiency is high, etc. Also, we supply chain, circular economy, etc. Then we turn to another part. Now it is very hot, popular topic globally is greening by ICT, which is, for example, we say smart energy, just now you mentioned, and smart buildings, smart cities, just now John explained us. And on smart energy, also Christopher talked about the renewable energy just now, yes. So it is very important for our energy transition globally from renewable. If we say, for example, our energies are all renewable, how to say, no emissions, then we can develop our economy as we wish. We are net zero, but it is impossible, yes, because always we have some emissions from our energy consumption. Then we need to develop some recommendation or guidelines on smart energy solutions. For example, in ITU recommendation, we have ALODA 1380 series, which is, for example, smart energy solution for data center, smart energy solution for base station, telecommunication rooms, and also another one, smart energy solution for cities and home application. Then in that recommendation, we provide lots of solutions you can take a look and to help industries to in one part, it is increase the proportion or how to say percentages of renewable energies. For example, we say just now Christopher said also solar and wind, yes. For example, we use our AI and the big data technology to forecast the weather. We know, okay, our weather will support us to have how much renewable energies. Then we dynamically control the main or another part of energy which have lots of consumption. Then we increase our renewable energy percentages in this way. And after that, if we cannot increase anymore, then we have to increase our energy efficiency. Just now we say in our industries, transportations, buildings, cities, which I can say consume energy part, then we have to using our new technology, smart energy solutions to increase our energy efficiency side as much as possible and also decrease the GHG emissions. So in this regard, we would like to say there are two aspects just now I mentioned. First is we do as much as possible on power supply point as renewable. And another point on the which consumes energy, we have to increase our energy efficiency. We have to push our circular economy to use materials and the energy as much as possible as the circular way. And we may also to see which is our most part from the GHG emissions and improve that one, etc. So these are all overview of ITU recommendation which on the smart energy solution. But if you look into detail of a different recommendation, I believe you can get much more information. All these aspects are all leading by our working party two chair, Paolo, Gemma. So if you're interested, you can also contact me or you can communicate also with Paolo also in the meeting room. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chi. Now, okay, maybe we can go back to the city. And John, what is intended to be the reason the Unity for Smart Sustainable City group, or is a group that is called a thematic group KPI? And what is the intent to be the result of this thematic group KPI on digital transformation? And how does it relate to environmental efficiency? John?
Thank you, Paolo. No, just unmuting myself. It takes sometimes you gotta find it. Yeah, thanks. So yes, we've started a new thematic group to develop a number of things for measuring and monitoring and reporting on digital transformation in cities, in particular how it looks at sort of emerging digital technologies. What we're hoping through this process is to develop key performance indicators, first of all, that cities can use to measure and monitor how they're progressing in terms of their digital transformation and how they're progressing towards meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. At the same time, what we want to do is prepare a number of tools that will allow cities to, one, collect this information, give them clear guidance on how to collect the KPIs. At the same time, we want to develop tools that will allow them to, I would say, monitor their progress in a visual manner, such that they can look at the development of policies to address those areas where they find that they're lacking because of the visualization. We'd also like to develop sort of analysis tools as well. And by analysis tools and benchmarking tools, that would allow cities to see how they are not only progressing in their own context, but in the context of other cities globally. So for instance, when we did the Smart Sustainable Cities key performance indicators, we would look at the various areas and then or the Sustainable Development Goals and determine what would be considered to be sort of very sustainable or very smart performance. So for instance, if we looked at things like electric vehicles, we would lose an example like Norway, which is some of the highest adoption of electric vehicles globally. If we looked at pedestrian infrastructure, we'd look at maybe a city like Copenhagen, which has a very extensive, traffic-free pedestrian network. If we looked at safety, we might look at a city like Tokyo with a very low crime rate, for instance. So there's all these other things we look at. So we want to develop the tools so that a city can not only collect the data, but then turn that data into information, which can then look at policies to digitally transform, but do it in a responsible and environmentally friendly manner. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you, John. So we have our time. Maybe we can make another question to Christophe. Can be too much? Do you think there is too much measure regarding the environmental efficiency of digital technology? So, practically as SG5, we lost too much standard of this.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you asked that question. Doing too much of a good thing or thinking you're doing too much of a good thing may not have the desired result. I'd like to underline something that John said. In this case, enterprises, whatever size, but especially small and medium-sized enterprises, are not different from cities. And cities in this case are different, unless they're different countries, but the necessity for guidance and inclusive activities and inclusive types of measures is very important. Also, and connected to the guidance, non-financial measures, non-financial support measures for those who are then implementing these suggestions that John made, both at the city or at the company level. This non-financial support, such as training or advisory services or this kind of stuff, that's really essential. That's really important. But whether there can be too much measurement, from my perspective, environment is only partially a local issue. Honestly, effectively tackling climate and environmental issues is definitely a global issue and requires global coordination. Okay, what we tend to do is everybody then starts looking at their own backyard and forgets a little bit about, or maybe doesn't even want to know what's going on in the neighbor's backyard. See, when I grew up, it was a little bit different. Everybody wanted to be like the Joneses, right? So you did the stuff that the Joneses did. Now we're so cool and so wealthy and so smart, and we got all our digital technologies. We don't do what the Joneses do. We all do our own stuff. And to be very honest, that is exactly contradicting the path to a greater environmental efficiency in general, and to the implementation and the proper and the beneficial implementation of digital technologies for a higher environmental implementation. We have from our research, we look at the need for these digital technologies, and we see that there's a lot of firms at the firm level, company level, that want to implement. Okay, that means that they're, and regardless of the size, 85% want to actually implement new technologies for greater environmental efficiency. I mean, that's spectacular. I wonder if we asked the public, went out here on the street and said, are you willing to do something like this and spend money for it? I don't think we'd achieve that high a rate. And also, regardless of the size with respect to this. What then happens is that we start thinking that we have to collect data to make decisions, particularly at the policy level. And what happens is that now we already have a lot of data, but we have them basically in very conventional areas. With every development of a technology in general, but also a digital technology, you're opening new spheres, okay? In some places, you want to measure, of course, these outcomes of these advances in these new spheres. And in fact, in some cases, that would be very sensible and not using old and should sort of a long time phased out type of indicators. So new tech also needs new KPIs, to be very honest, okay? But what it doesn't need is millions of different KPIs. It needs a few that are agreed upon among many. And in that case, standard definitions for these few, and then this guidance that John was actually talking about. Our research also, shows that when you see that there's a proliferation of different taxonomies, if more people are deciding on, we want a new instrument, a carbon emission mechanism or something, and then you don't have one for all, you have different ones, or you have different evaluation methodologies. You have different one per country, you have different one depending on the municipal level, you have different ones at the EU level compared to the American or to the Chinese methodologies. Yeah, the corporates who are active globally are already asking their questions, how do we keep up to this? And then you got to remember that the small and medium-sized enterprises that are integrated in the global value chains, they have to orient themselves along these lines too. So my plea is for, because often people get involved, there's a little bit of a competition then, not only for developing the technologies or for developing economic, or for engaging in economic activity and creating growth, but then in this fervor to control activities and results. And that's why my comment here is that what we should have is, we don't want to confuse the market participants. Have fewer indicators, have fewer KPIs, have fewer methods of measurement, fewer consistent types of evaluation, use available data, also secondary sources, because otherwise we're going to render the potentially positive effect of the new technologies less effective, because they're inconsistent then across the different sizes of economies, across different cities, across the different countries. And that's something that would then lead to unfortunately not such a positive result. And those kind of things, developments, not to say words of things, those kind of developments are fueling then the anti-digital technology movement. And in the end, that is reducing the potential to improve the environment.
Okay, thank you, Christophe, for this very interesting discussion about the measurement of the KPI to apply. We have a question from the floor from Paolo from Telefonica. And he asked if could we say that technology, for example, 5G, have an enabling effect all along the value chain. The impact is going to be different, but the technology is in itself can be considered conditions sine qua non for the digitalization of the company that drive to achieve sustainable growth. What do you think, Christoph, about this?
I got to have a look at the question.
Oops.
Sorry. No, that's a long, difficult question. Good question. The answer is potentially yes. It does have the potential to have an effect all along the value chain, and to affect all participants along that value chain. And then depending on the interaction of those participants with in the society and the economy at large, the societal and the socioeconomic effect can be in fact much larger than the micro effect. Definitely though, as in already suggested in the question, if you do, just considering that you do not have the participants have unique characteristics, the effect will not be equal along those in the value chain. But the optimal would be if it were, just like you had originally, where there was about 25 years ago, you had 30 years ago, a common orientation on how to reduce transboundary air pollution in Europe, for example, and it fed through the entire value chain, and we improved the environment across the entire continent. And that would be a preferable type of development. I think the potential is absolutely here, but like I said, you need the consistency on the in the regulatory framework to allow that.
Okay, thank you, John. There is sorry, Christoph. There is questions from the floor, or our friend in line, John or Chi, want to also add something to this question from Telefonica? Or if you understand the question, because it's not simple. The question is
no, and it has Latin in it too.
It's a very long question.
Which Canadians do not learn in school.
So practically the question is if technology can have an enabling effect on all supply chain in an industry, in a company. What is the opinion of our nice speaker from the different side of the world, because we have one in China and one in Canada. It's very interesting. And we are just in the middle.
Okay. Thank you, Paolo. And if John agrees, I am first. Thank you. I think the answer should be absolutely yes. Because for example, we say 5G, then we use 5G to promote this supply chain, how to say, become sustainable. For example, enterprise or factories using 5G technologies in everywhere to be more sustainable. And another part we have to take care also is our ICT technology, 5G base station should be also we use our supply chain as green. For example, telecom equipment, and we have lots of equipment, yes, and our equipment should be energy efficient, blah blah blah. This these aspects also should be considered. There are two, 5G and just to be summarized, 5G or our digital technology can help all other sectors, supply chain more sustainable, and also we are now have to make sure our supply chain more sustainable. This is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chi. We lost some word, but I think that the sense of what you said is clear. John, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit. Yes, digital technology certainly can have an enabling effect. And they certainly can drive sustainability through the value chain. What we found with cities is there's also a lot of actions that can be taken to become more sustainable that may not involve technology. So there's a combination. There's a lot of actions that people can take, simple things to reduce sort of environmental impacts or how they live sustainably. We don't always need a technology solution, but some of them, for instance, for big problems, absolutely. But there's a lot of small things that everybody can do that also benefit without having the requirements for any type of sort of technology solution or software solution. I'll give you an example. For instance, in Singapore, now this is pre-pandemic, before everybody was locked down, but they first were looking at a very large deployment for e-health. And then they found out that the vast majority, almost everybody in Singapore lives, I think it's like 300 meters walking distance to a doctor's office. And they looked at it going, it's probably better that we deploy technology for other problems because most people can actually walk to the doctor's office. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, and then they went, well, wait a second now we do need remote, and then technology became a great solution because now people actually weren't allowed to go visit the doctor. So, you can have both and things can change, but technologies can certainly solve a lot of problems.
Thank you, John. But speaking about the enabler effort, is one of the new standard that we are developing SG5 to calculate the enabler effort of ICT technology in our sector. It is we hope to try to find a methodology to calculate this, to assess this, because it's one of the big questions for the future. Is we are thinking that ICT can solve problems in our industry, but we need to, in some way, to measure this effort. There is question for the floor, please, Daniela.
Yeah, to Christoph. I'm not sure if I got your point. Before you mentioned about the need to grow, and to acquire new competences. Then you said that once we have these components in place, then we can think about the strategy. So don't you think maybe I got this wrong, but don't you think that strategy can actually enable all of these, and actually that is something that we need sometimes. The work, that is currently, in progress, is quite unstructured, and we need a more harmony. We need to harmonize this effort.
Thank you for that question. Yes, the question was, what prerequisites are required, and so I named a number of prerequisites, and one of those prerequisites was definitely the need for the competence and the skills that are required for implementation. But perhaps I did say it in that direction. Definitely, you're right, and I would never. I agree to that 100%. There is some overall strategy that's required, there's a little bit differences, in my opinion, from the micro to the macro level, and depending on what you let it, how much you dictate and how much you let develop. And I'm more from the evidence that we get from our studies. It's if you want to do something globally or at a higher level, then set perhaps a target or something, but do not try to plan the entire strategy through with every single participant already. You're sort of determining ahead of time what everyone has to contribute, because then you're limiting the potential, actually, and that's what I meant by it. I mean, there are examples in the past where single measures actually led to an enormous improvement in the environment and also innovation. I mean, there's always this classic example of the horse-drawn carriage in the UK, and then the replacement with the automobile. But there's I remember when I was a kid, we still had real refrigerators. When I mean real refrigerators, that was these big ugly things in the kitchen, full of chlorofluorocarbons that were terrible for the environment. And our mothers always had these giant cans of hairspray in the bathroom that burned holes in the atmosphere in the Antarctic. And so what happened was that policymakers did not try to make some tiny little adjustments to the system and then say, oh, and then we'll make some subsidy for people who don't use it or something like this. Nah, it's just chlorofluorocarbons are obviously detrimental to the environment and they're forbidden. One simple action. And the rest was left to the market with innovation and technology and development and so forth. So you understood me correctly, but with the prerequisites that are required. But what I just meant that you should not try at the top policy level to try to determine the path too precisely, because then you will limit all potential. And that's what I meant to say.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Hello, this is Maria Pavlova from Fitch Ratings. I would like to go back to the point Christoph made about financing green initiatives or sustainability projects. So we all see these projects mainly, or in most cases, focus on things like solar panels, tangible assets, as you said. So what is your opinion of them in terms of being used as financing intangible assets, all these intangible tech projects that you mentioned? Do you see movement towards that direction? And if so, could you provide some more detail? Thank you.
I like that question a lot. I like your question too. But I'm a big fan of intangible assets, and because they are not really respected in at least in Europe and in Austria, for example, not to the extent that they are in some other countries in the world, and in fact in some other European countries even, and regarded as a positive potential contribution. I would be very interested in what she and John have to say in regard to financing the environmentally enhancing digital technologies. In general, and that the research also shows it, in general, financing systems should be not technology specific. So they should be technology open. And what you then have, and you see it slowly developing in Austria, there is a shift. I mean, it looks enormous because if you look at growth rates, they're spectacular, at least until a few months ago. They were spectacular exactly in these areas. But if you start from zero, a small increase is a heck of a lot, and so it doesn't mean very much. My opinion is that you can definitely, or in this field, there, because of spontaneous regulatory, at least from our knowledge from those examples that we have looked at, reactions. You have a insufficient level of financial investment in these area of immaterial intangible assets, especially for example, in Austria. There are other countries that show you much better examples where this is done, Denmark, UK, Canada, in fact, as far as my knowledge is, but maybe John can correct me on this. Also some Scandinavian countries. Where this is done, there you have immediate, or you have better effects that are documentable, okay? The problem is what we have is that the banking system and the regulation of the banking system has to be more congruent to the with the technology development in general, and then with the policy framework. And those three things at the moment, I don't have a study on this, to be honest, but just my impression from the things that we have collected is that I have not found a place where those three are exactly congruent. And if we would find one, and probably it's a smaller area, maybe it's a city, as John said, but there you could see example. Maybe she has a Chinese example, but there you potentially have really rapid development of, especially in this area, of the environmentally enhancing digital technologies, because you can leapfrog in that case. You can go to a more expensive one, and it's technology neutral, and that would be the most critical thing, because then you choose the particular one that has been proven on the market to be bringing meeting the necessary goals at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Please, Daniela.
So what do you think about the rebound effects? No, and since I mean, the digitalization will drive demand, and that will have an impact, you know, on environmental impact as well as social. What do you think about?
What was the first sentence?
The rebound effect.
Mm-hmm. Rebound from what?
A rebound of related to the increased digitalization and increased growth of technologies, AI and other type of technologies. So since that will drive also demand and consumption. So are you concerned for rebound effects, and what's your insight on this? I would like to ask to the speakers.
Okay, rebound effect is, I think is around 10 here, but we have discussion about this in study group 5 on how to calculate the rebound effect. Rebound effect means, okay, we implement the digital technology for reduce the impact, and at the end we create a need to more work, to more activity, to more increasing more the use of something like that. Is a very good question for this. I don't know if you have some idea on could be the issue for this. It's something that, for example, I think that in the last 2 years of the COVID situation, we see a lot of increasing of call or on the e-meeting and so on. Is some way a rebound effect in that way. I don't know if you can have some word of this, if you consider some time on this or not.
I can only say I'm not worried about it. Why not? Because it depends on the term that you're looking at, time period, right? You're looking short term, medium term, long term. And medium long term, I'm not worried about it at all. Yeah, I'll tell you. Because the one thing that the past has shown us is that you do not, there's at no point in time in civilization did you except under certain political conditions, and those examples did not last also for the long term. They lasted for a long medium term, but not the long term. You did not freeze yourself in that particular technological paradigm, right? You always had continual switches in technological paradigms. And there's two things that you have driving the system. The one is the innovation, driven through the market usually. And the other one is the utility, the need to increase the utility of the individuals in the society, in the country, or perhaps even in the city. There has been no limit to that either yet. So also, I have not seen, especially since COVID, that showed us something very interesting. We actually did some work on that. You saw some economic activities, whether they're in production or in the service area, replaced by other activities. And in the past, it was more service for service or good for good, or product for product, in other words. But now you actually had it across these sectors. So you had goods replacing services in a certain respect. And that's why I think the jury is a little bit out. It's such a good question, and you've just been discussing it for 10 years. And I don't think yet there's an answer, because what you would need is you would need a completely full encompassing study. I mean, depending on the offer, we would be willing to do that, of course, but to see the absolute effects, all of the positive and all of the negative effects, with the complete interlinkages, and that in this new network type of environment that we are so increasingly in, partially because, of course, of the digital technologies. But I have not seen such a result, except at the very macro level, and that's why I think we need. This is one of the good points for this session. Actually, it's a good point. This is where we need some more evidence before we can give you a final answer on that one.
Okay. John or Chi, you want to add something about the rebound effect? Or I know that is a very special thing in
Can I first then? Thank you very much. And based on our understanding, for example, in GSE, let's say that our emission from ICT around 2% of the global total GHG emission, but our enabling effect is 20%. It's 10 times. GSMA said it's 10 times our GHG emissions, which we can brought to our other industries. So it is very important. But the question raised just now, it's important. Our self-ICT should be green because we are increasing quickly, more how to say, rapidly than other industries. But now I think we are considering lots of, for example, in our standard, we put it lots of aspects to be greener. This is one point. And our enabling effect is very large. So we cannot say, okay, because of our development, we will increase some GHG emission, but we have to think about how to help other industries to be greener, to let them green. This is the very important point. And my organization, CICT in China, already do this kind of, how to say, give some results on the domestic area to say, our ICT industry GHG emission is less than 2%, 1.4 exactly, but our enabling effect is more than 22, around 12 to 22. So this is the, what my understanding that we have to consider more or develop more on the how to combine together with other industries and to push them to increase their energy efficiency and decrease their emission. This is the first point. And at the same time, we have to also consider, next point just raised, that we have to be green itself. This is my understanding. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you, Chi. John, do you want to add something, or different? We close now the session with only 2 minutes of delay.
Yeah, I think that's all I have. I think everything's been said.
Okay, so for Italian gas, we have fantastic result, only 2 minutes of delay. Thank to all of my speaker, and thank you very much to join us on this session. That we touch a very different topic from economical point of view of sustainability, how to measure the effect of and how to look on smart energy solution and on the smart city sustainable and KPI with John. Thank you very much for all of you. Now we have a coffee break. And correct.